friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our half-acre homestead. Another holiday tradition here in my household. This is a recipe my mother used to bake when we were little. We're going to make pecan snowballs. Okay, excuse me, pecan snowballs. I'm sorry, it just doesn't sound right. It's got to be pecan snowballs. And what you're going to need is, you're going to need a half a pound of butter, 2 cups of flour. I use whole wheat, 2 cups of pecans, chopped, and they're very expensive this year. And I put them in the little 1 cup food processor to chop them a little finer. 4 tablespoons of sugar, which I use, of course, coarse organic, vanilla extract, and icing or confectioner's sugar. You're going to need about 2 pounds, but you're not going to use it all, and you're going to be able to sift it and reuse whatever's left afterwards. So here we go. Oh, one really important thing. You're going to need a wax paper lined strong box with a lock for the freezer, or they'll never make it to Christmas. I kid you not. All right, so here we go. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Alrighty, we have our half a pound of butter, or 2 sticks if you're my American friends, and we're just going to cream that and add in our 4 tablespoons of sugar. And the reason there's so little sugar in this recipe is because of the icing sugar. Whatever size your cookie ends up being, it's going to be doubled in size because of the icing sugar. Now we want to put in our 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and we'll just whip that in there. I just love vanilla. I love vanilla. And you know what, ladies? You don't need expensive perfumes. You dab a little vanilla behind your ears and your husband will be giving you nuzzles and loves. I'm telling you. They got to make more food-scented perfumes. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start creaming in our flour little bit by little bit. Now we're going to do it by hand. And in a few minutes you will see me. I'm going to work the nuts in and the rest of this flour in by hand, because it's one of those doughs that it's a molding dough and it doesn't spread, it doesn't really do anything. And this is another thing. These cookies, I'm going to tell you, these cookies do not brown in the baking. All right? They do not brown. There we go. They don't brown in the baking, so you have to be really careful. You cook them in a low oven. Oh, these are so wonderful. This is just the feel of this dough in my hands takes me so far back. I mean, I remember sitting there with a plate of icing sugar and rolling these cookies over and over and over again in icing sugar, until of course I became an adult and I figured out the best way to do this. These cookies have a lot of different names. It's all very basically like there's some people call them Russian wedding cookies or Mexican wedding cookies, or I have no idea. They are in my mother's 1950 Ogilvy cookbook as snowball cookies. So that's what we call them. And I'll tell you, when I worked at the bakery, I made a batch of these for my boss, and he liked them so much that he allowed me to make a huge amount, and they sold like crazy because all I did was put out a little plate of these cookies, and if someone said, oh, what are these, and I'd say, well, okay, try one, and they would try one, and then boom, they would buy a bag of them. Now, unlike the bakery where we used to weigh every cookie ball, you don't want these too big. You really don't, because they don't puff up or anything, but they're going to double in size with the icing sugar. I'm not kidding. So you want bite size. And I don't mean, you know, the Wolfie bite size. I mean a lady's bite size, which is bigger than a regular marble, but smaller than the shooter. If that makes any sense. I don't suppose kids nowadays play marbles anymore, but us old folks know what we're talking about. All right, I will be back when I have this tray rolled and ready for the oven. And preheat your oven to 300 degrees, no more than that. Because like I said, you don't want to overcook these. They do not brown in the cooking. You just want them a little bit golden on the bottom. All right, we'll be back when I have these rolled. Okay, here we go, folks. Here's our first tray of cookies to go in the oven. And we are going to bake these for about 25 minutes in a low oven, between 275 and 300 degrees. And we're just going to bake them until the bottoms are golden. All right, we'll be back when they come out of the oven. All right, these are coming out of the oven. Like I've said before, my oven's wonky, so I did mine at 275 for 20 minutes. Now, see if you can see this. The bottoms are just kind of a toasted golden color. And while they're still hot, what I've done is I put about a pound of white confectioner's sugar in this container, and we are just going to gently drop these in there. Now these have to be hot when they go in, because what they do is they melt the icing sugar, and these are really, really hot. Let's see if we can do this a little differently. You want to be really careful, because when they're this hot, they can just explode. Now we're just going to very gently put these in the icing sugar. Let's move our pan out of the way here. And if you notice, I have a wire rack, and it's sitting on a layer of wax paper to keep it clean, the table clean. Now, we're just going to dump the rest of this bag of icing sugar on top. This is the trick I was telling you about. This is what made it cost effective for me to be able to make these in the bakery one year, because I wasn't rolling those puppies one by one. And you just shake. And every once in a while you give it a little flip, and you just continue to shake and you actually let these cool in the icing sugar. But you've got to keep them buried. Actually, I'm going to put some more icing sugar in there, because like I said, when you're done with this, you just sift the icing sugar and put it back in a container and use it for something else. Now while these are cooling, you just let them cool like this. And every once in a while you give them a shake. While these are cooling in the icing sugar, I'm going to put these ones in the oven and set my timer. Make no mistake, folks, you're going to need a strong box with a key to keep your family out of these when they're done. One year I made a whole bunch of goodie boxes to mail to family. And I put in fruit cakes and snowballs and shortbread and other goodies and little tins of breakfast tea. And then I did them in these decorative tins, and I sealed them shut with packing tape, and I put them in the freezer for payday so that I could mail them all out. The day I went to go mail them all out, my son had gone into the freezer, opened every single tin. There was 8 of them, and ate all the snowballs. Out of every tin. Well, I can laugh now, but I really wanted to kill them. So trust me, you're going to need a strong box. We'll be back when these come on here. Okay, folks, our cookies have been sitting in the icing sugar, and I've been shaking them periodically. Now we're going to start bringing them out. They're still warm, but we want them to cool now on this rack. And if you remember the size of these are now almost doubled in size. And one of the reasons I'm taking them out while they're still warm is because I have another batch in the oven. Yeah, it is. It's like a treasure hunt, my son said, and he's very right. And a very good treasure it is. Wait till he finds out these are all going in a strong box in the freezer. So we're just going to take these out and let them cool. And in a little while, you don't want them touching because they're still warm, and you don't want the cookies melted to each other. Alrighty, so we'll be back when these are all out of here and I have the other batch going in, and I'll show you the difference in sizes. Alright, these have just come out of the oven, and you can see the difference in the size between the cookie. This is why you don't put so much sugar in the cookie, because they get really big with the icing sugar. I just want to get these in the icing sugar, and then we'll have a taste test on the finished ones, shall we? And I've taken some of the icing sugar out of this so that I could do this with the second batch. Now, shall we have a taste test? Now you got to be careful, because these can explode in your mouth. I'm going to try and bite it so that you can see the inside. For someone who doesn't eat a lot of refined sugar, almost no refined sugar, this is like drugs. But that strong box over there, folks, that's an absolute necessity with these things. We're Mrs. Bolton from our Half Acre Homestead Snowballs. It's Christmas. You gotta have snowballs.